During an argument, my fiancée sneered, "Know your place. You should be grateful that I lowered my standards for you." I replied, "You're right." Then I ended everything and focused on myself. She didn't take that well. All right, Reddit. This story goes from lovebirds to restraining orders real quick. I was engaged to some piece of work who thought she's above everyone. The delusion you're going to hear in this story is absolutely mind-blowing. So grab some popcorn and enjoy the shit show. By the way, read the whole thing. The ending's real satisfying. LOL. I'm Lucas, 29 male, and have been working as an automotive tech for about 8 years now. I'm ASE certified in everything from engine performance to electrical systems, and I can diagnose problems that leave other shops scratching their heads. The engagement ring? That cost me $4,000 that I saved up working overtime and side jobs on weekends. My ex-fiancée Paige came from money. Real money. Her dad's some big shot investment banker who drives a different German car every year. Mom's a real estate agent who sells houses to tech bros and trust fund babies. Their house had one of those circular driveways and a 3-car garage full of vehicles they probably couldn't jumpstart themselves. Me? My pops was a factory worker who taught me that a man's worth comes from what he builds with his own hands, not what he inherits from daddy's checkbook. Different worlds, but I thought respect was universal. Things were almost perfect before the engagement. Then things started shifting the past few months, but I'd been too busy working to notice the signs. It started small. She'd make jokes about my blue-collar charm when we were out with her MBA friends. Then she began introducing me as Lucas. He works in automotive, instead of my fiancé Lucas. Subtle stuff that I brushed off as her being nervous about fitting in. Things escalated when her parents invited us to their country club for dinner last month. I wore my best shirt and tie. Thought I looked decent. Her dad spent the entire meal explaining why technical work was becoming obsolete and how smart young men were moving into knowledge-based careers. Meanwhile, her mom kept steering the conversation away whenever someone asked what I did. I should have known something was up when Paige's friend Kendall got engaged to some finance bro. At the engagement party, I overheard Paige telling a group of women that she was working on getting me to go back to school, like I was some kind of fixer-upper project. When one of them asked what I did for work, Paige actually said, "He's between careers right now," while I was standing 10 feet away, still in my work clothes because I'd come straight from the shop. I pulled her aside that night and asked what the hell that was about. "Lucas, these people don't understand your work. I was trying to protect you from judgment." "Protect me? Or protect yourself from being embarrassed?" "Don't be so dramatic. I'm just looking out for both of us." But she wasn't done. 2 weeks ago, she started leaving career change pamphlets around the apartment. Business school brochures, trade to management programs, anything that would get me out of that garage and into an office where she could be proud of me. When I asked her about it, she said she was helping me figure out my next step. The week before last was another red flag I should have caught. Her sorority sister Leah got married, and at the reception, someone asked Paige what her fiancé did. Instead of answering, she grabbed my hand and said, "Lucas is very handy, aren't you, babe?" Like I was some kind of maintenance guy she was dating for the novelty. Her friends all laughed like it was hilarious. I didn't. That night, she told me I was being too sensitive and that I needed to develop a sense of humor about these things. The final blow-up happened one Tuesday night. I'd been pulling 12-hour shifts all week because our lead diagnostic guy was out sick, and Vincent needed someone who could handle the complex electrical problems. That day, I'd spent 6 hours tracking down a phantom drain in a Mercedes that was leaving 3 other shops stumped. Turns out it was a faulty module in the trunk that was drawing power intermittently. The customer was so grateful, he tipped me $200 on top of the diagnostic fee. I came home around 8 p.m. feeling pretty good about cracking that case. Paige was in the kitchen wearing one of those $200 yoga outfits, getting ready for her evening Pilates class. She had this look on her face like she'd been building up to something all day. "Geez, Lucas, you smell like a garage." "Probably because I just made more in diagnostic fees today than most people make in a week," I said, pulling the $200 out of my pocket. Look, the customer was so happy he tipped me this for fixing what 3 other shops couldn't figure out. She looked at the cash like it was contaminated. "Don't you dare track that dirt through my apartment." Her apartment. We'd been living together for 8 months, splitting everything 50-50. I'd actually been paying slightly more because I insisted on covering the utilities, but apparently my money wasn't clean enough to earn me equal standing. I stopped and turned around. Something in my expression must have changed because she actually took a step back. Interesting choice of words, considering I've been paying more than half of everything here. That's when the princess decided to show her true colors. Started going off about how embarrassing it was when her MBA classmates asked what her fiance did for work, how she had to make excuses and change the subject because working with cars wasn't the kind of career that impressed her peer group. Look at yourself, Lucas. Look at your hands. They're always dirty. Your fingernails are black, and you smell like motor oil half the time. I'm building a career. I'm networking with important people. I'm going places. And you're, what? Going to change oil filters for the rest of your pathetic life? I looked down at my hands. Yeah, they were stained. Same hands that had just diagnosed a problem 3 certified technicians couldn't figure out. Hands that could rebuild a transmission blindfolded. Hands that earned more in a day than her unpaid MBA internship paid in a month. My friends ask me what my fiancé does, and I have to make something up because I'm too embarrassed to tell them you're a mechanic. Do you know how that feels? No, but I know how it feels to be engaged to someone who's ashamed of what puts food on the table. You need to know your place in this relationship, she continued, really hitting her stride now. I'm the one with the future here. I'm the one with connections, with prospects, with a real career ahead of me. You're lucky I'm even slumming it with someone like you. My parents think I'm completely insane for lowering my standards this much. That last line hit different. Not painful, just clear. Like someone had just flipped a switch and showed me exactly what kind of person I'd been planning to marry. I nodded, like I was actually considering her words. Then I smiled. You know what? You're absolutely right. She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. What? You're right. You should definitely be with someone better than me. Someone who deserves you. I grabbed my keys and wallet. I'm going to help you with that. Lucas, what are you? I'm staying at Dean's tonight. Tomorrow I'll come get my tools and we can discuss how fast you want this engagement ended. Sounds good? The look on her face was like watching someone realize they'd just played themselves. She'd expected me to grovel, to promise I'd magically transform into a white-collar prince. Instead, I'd called her bluff and somehow made it her idea. Wait, you can't just... Sure I can. I headed for the door. Thanks for the clarity. And hey, now you won't have to lie to your friends anymore. I could hear her sputtering behind me as I walked out, but I never looked back. Dean lived about 20 minutes away in a decent apartment complex near the industrial district. We'd known each other since high school. He was a welder at a fabrication shop, pulled in 6 figures, doing specialized work on industrial projects. When I showed up at his door at 9 p.m. with a duffel bag and my toolbox, he took one look at my face and grabbed 2 drinks without saying a word. I told him the whole story, including the part about her being embarrassed to tell people what I did for work. Dean just shook his head. Good. I was wondering when you'd get tired of being her charity case. That girl looked at me like I was going to boost her car every time I came over. He took a long pull from his drink. You know what the funny part is? I make more money than most of those suit-wearing jerks she's trying to impress. Here's the thing, though, I said. I don't think she expected me to actually leave. Of course not. Rich girls like that think guys like us should be grateful for their attention. He grinned. This is going to be fun to watch. He was right. Paige had been playing a game where she held all the cards, and I just flipped the table. The dynamic had shifted, and she was about to find out what happens when you take someone for granted. That night, I did something. I changed my phone number, kept the old phone active so I could see what kind of messages she'd send, but got a new line that only people who mattered would have. Work, family, real friends. If she wanted to reach me, she'd have to go through Dean. And Dean thought the whole situation was entertaining. The next morning, I had to face the guys at the shop. Vincent's Automotive isn't fancy, but we handle everything from basic maintenance to full rebuilds, and our diagnostic rate is the highest in the city. These guys aren't just wrenchers. They're problem solvers who take pride in fixing what others can't. I walked into the shop around 7 a.m., and Ray was already there, working on a coffee and reading through work orders for the day. Ray had been head mechanic for 30 years, owned 3 rental properties, and had more real-world wisdom than all of Paige's professors combined. You look different, he said, without looking up from his paperwork. Different how? You finally dumped the princess? Other way around. She dumped me for not being good enough. Ray laughed so hard, he nearly spilled his coffee. Best news I've heard all week. That girl was poison, Lucas. The man didn't just diagnose car problems. You think I planned this? Son, I've watched you troubleshoot electrical systems that would make grown men cry. You're not the type to just react to garbage. You saw this coming and positioned yourself to win. Maybe he was right. Maybe some part of me had been waiting for her to reveal exactly who she was so I could make a clean exit with my dignity intact. Either way, I felt lighter than I had in months. The other guys, Enzo, Sergio, and Jake, filtered in over the next hour, and word spread quickly. Their reactions were unanimous. Good riddance. Any woman who's ashamed of honest work isn't worth having, Enzo said while we worked on a transmission rebuild. My wife brags about what I do. That's how you know you got the right one. That afternoon, I went back to Paige's place to collect my things. She was in full damage control mode, complete with tears and promises that she'd been stressed about finals, and didn't mean any of it. Baby, you know I love you just the way you are, she sobbed, still wearing that engagement ring like it meant something. No, you really don't. But that's okay, because I'm not the same guy who's going to settle for someone who doesn't. I handed her the ring box. This should cover your emotional damages. Lucas, please, we can work through this. Paige, I want you to be happy. And clearly, I'm not the guy who can make that happen. I picked up my main toolbox. But here's some free advice. The next guy you date, don't tell him he's not good enough. Some of us actually listen. She tried everything. Tears, anger, even attempted seduction. But I was done. Had my stuff packed and loaded in under an hour. The look on her face when I walked out that final time was priceless. The old Lucas would have stayed and fought. New Lucas had better things to do. The first week at Dean's place was exactly what I needed. No walking on eggshells, no judgment about coming home dirty, no complaints about my truck being too aggressive for the parking garage. I used the time to think. Paige would try to contact me. Girls like her always did when they realized they'd lost control. So I did something smart. I started documenting everything from day one. Every text from her old number that I could still receive, every social media post, every coincidental encounter. Ray had taught me that when you're dealing with expensive problems, you keep detailed records. People problems weren't any different. I also started working on myself in ways I'd been putting off. Hit the gym Dean used. Signed up for additional ASE certifications that would boost my hourly rate. And started researching what it would take to open my own shop someday. Paige started the texting campaign exactly 7 days after I moved out. Right on schedule. I'm willing to work through this if you are. When that got ignored, Lucas, please don't throw away 3 years over one stupid fight. By day 3, answer your dang phone, Lucas. We need to talk like adults. Then, you're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you. I screenshotted everything but didn't respond. Let her show her true character while I stayed completely silent. Meanwhile, word was getting around. She'd apparently been telling her side of the story to anyone who'd listen, painting me as some kind of deadbeat who'd given up on bettering himself. But she made a crucial mistake. She was talking trash about blue-collar work in a city where half the economy ran on skilled trades. The real test came when she showed up at the shop during lunch rush on a Friday. I was doing a brake job on a police interceptor when I heard that familiar voice that used to make my skin crawl. Now it just made me grin. So, this is where you're hiding these days. I finished the brake line I was working on. Never leave a safety system half done, before sliding out to face her. She was dressed like she was going to a club. Every guy in the shop had stopped to watch this entertainment. Paige, what can we do for you today? We need to talk. Privately. No, we don't. But if you've got car trouble, we can help with that. What kind of car are you driving these days? The question threw her off. That's not... Lucas, don't be childish. You can't just throw away 3 years because of one tiny argument. Ray appeared next to me, and I could see he was enjoying this show. Ma'am, are you looking to get some work done, or are you just visiting? Paige looked at Ray like he was something stuck to her shoe. And you are? Ray Delgado, head technician. I'm also the guy who taught Lucas most of what he knows about engines. Ray's voice was pleasant, but his eyes were steel. The man knew how to deliver a surgical strike without raising his voice. Paige realized she was outmatched but pressed on. This is exactly what I'm talking about. These people, this place, you're so much better than this, Lucas. No, I said calmly. I'm exactly where I belong. And you're exactly where you don't. She left, but I could see the wheels turning. This wasn't over. Good thing I was already 3 steps ahead. That evening, Dean asked me, "You think she's going to escalate?" I know she is. That's why I'm getting ahead of it. I showed him the folder I'd started. Screenshots of texts, printed social media posts, a timeline of events. Dean whistled low. Dang, bro, you're building a case like it's going to court. Might have to. Girls like Paige don't take rejection well, and daddy's money makes them think they're untouchable. I added the latest screenshots to the file. But documentation is everything. After Paige's inspection tour of my workplace, I did something that turned out to be brilliant. I got ahead of her narrative. See, word travels fast in the automotive community, and I knew she'd be spreading her version of events. So I called a few key people and gave them the real story first. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Started with Scott, who ran the parts supply house. Then called Chuck at the transmission shop, and Carlos, who owned the body shop down the street. These weren't just business contacts. They were guys who'd known me for years, who'd seen my work, who understood what kind of person I was. When guys heard that some trust fund princess had called us all beneath her standards, they didn't just rally around me, they started actively working against her. Mechanics, parts suppliers, tow truck drivers, even the guys who ran the quick lube places. Suddenly, Paige found herself persona non grata anywhere cars were involved in this city. The network effect was beautiful. When Paige took her BMW to the dealership for service, somehow the work took twice as long as usual. When she needed a jump start in a parking lot, guys who would normally help mysteriously didn't see her. Word had spread that she was the woman who thought she was too good for that crowd. That's how I met Talia. She was the parts manager at our main supplier, and she rolled up to the shop one day in a restored '69 Camaro that she'd built herself. When she stepped out, I noticed she had actual calluses on her hands and grease under her nails. "You're Lucas, right? The one who diagnosed that ABS module problem for Chuck's shop last week?" "Guilty as charged." "Nice work. Most guys would have thrown parts at that problem until something stuck. You actually understood the system." She handed me an invoice with a smile. "Plus, I heard you dumped that princess who was embarrassed by your job." News traveled fast. "Word gets around, huh? Honey, in this business, everything gets around." She gestured to my work area. "Mind if I take a look at what you're working on?" We spent the next 20 minutes talking shop, while she checked out the LS swap I was planning for my personal truck. She understood torque specs, electrical theory, and engine management systems better than most technicians I'd worked with. Plus, she could back it up with actual wrench time. "Want to grab coffee and talk about that build? I might have some ideas for the fuel system." "Why not?" I smiled. For the first time in months, someone had asked me about my projects instead of complaining about them. Meanwhile, Paige's harassment campaign was getting creative. Girls started calling the shop, trying to convince Vincent that I was unreliable and unprofessional. Vincent, who'd seen my work for 3 years and knew I was his go-to guy for difficult diagnostics, just laughed. "Lady, Lucas is the best diagnostic tech I've ever had. He's saved me more comebacks than any 3 other guys combined. If you couldn't appreciate that, that's your loss, not his." Then she escalated to social media warfare. Started posting about supporting your man through his struggles and seeing potential when others give up. The comments from her sorority sisters were exactly what I'd expected. All about how she deserved better and shouldn't have to settle. But here's the thing. I didn't respond, react, or defend myself. I just focused on work and let her dig her own hole. Every post made her look more desperate. The best part was watching her friends' reactions. These were women who'd never changed their own oil, whose idea of automotive knowledge was knowing which buttons started the car. Talia found the whole thing hilarious. She's posting about finding a real man, while she just dumped someone who can actually fix things and solve problems. The irony is beautiful. That's when I knew Talia was special. She didn't just tolerate my work, she respected it, understood it, and could contribute to it. The difference was night and day. About 6 weeks after the breakup, Vincent called me into his office. I thought maybe Paige had escalated her complaint campaign, but instead he offered me the assistant manager position. The raise was significant, enough that I could afford my own place and start seriously planning for that shop I wanted to open. But more importantly, it was validation that I was building something real while Paige was still playing games. I found a small house with a 2-car garage and made an offer that same day. Cash down payment because I'd been saving money. The seller was impressed by my pre-approval letter and steady employment history. Closed in 3 weeks. Talia helped me move in, and we celebrated by setting up a proper workspace in the garage. She brought over her Camaro, and we spent the evening installing a new suspension system while planning future projects. This is what contentment felt like, working alongside someone who appreciated skill and craftsmanship. Paige? That chick wasn't done with her campaign. She'd been telling anyone who'd listen that I was going through a quarter-life crisis and would come crawling back when reality hit. Her confidence was impressive, considering she'd never shown any understanding of my actual financial situation or career prospects. That's when Dean suggested we throw a housewarming party. "Let people see how you're really doing," he said. "Show them what knowing your place actually looks like." We kept it casual. Barbecue in the backyard, drinks in coolers, guys from work and their families. Ray brought his wife, Vincent showed up with steaks he'd grilled at home, and Talia brought her famous potato salad. It was the kind of party where people actually enjoyed themselves. That's when Paige made her biggest mistake. She showed up uninvited and completely overdressed, wearing a cocktail dress to a backyard barbecue like she was attending some charity gala. "Congratulations on the new place," she said, like we were old friends catching up after a pleasant separation. "Thanks. Though I'm curious how you found out about it." "I have my ways." Wrong answer. That was basically admitting to stalking, and she'd said it in front of 15 witnesses. I could see Ray and Dean exchanging glances. "We need to talk," she announced to the entire party. "Privately. Whatever you need to say, you can say it here." "Fine." She took a deep breath like she was about to deliver a prepared speech. "I've been thinking about your little phase, and I'm ready to forgive you. We can start fresh. I've even been looking at career options that might work better for both of us." The audacity this woman got was impressive, but I kept my expression neutral. Every person at that party was now watching her make a complete fool of herself. Career options? Well, you could go back to school part-time, maybe get into management. My dad knows people who could help. Talia stepped forward, and I could see she was done being polite. "Lady, are you seriously trying to fix a man who just bought his own house and got promoted to management?" Paige looked at Talia like she'd just noticed an annoying insect. "And you are exactly?" "Someone with enough sense to appreciate quality when she sees it." "Quality?" Paige laughed, but it sounded forced. "He's a mechanic. He's a business owner, property owner, and skilled professional who doesn't need anyone's permission to be successful." Talia's voice was getting sharper. "What exactly do you own besides Daddy's credit cards?" That hit home. Paige's face flushed red, and I could see her losing control. Ray, who'd been quietly enjoying the show, decided to end it. "Ma'am, I think you should leave before you embarrass yourself further." "Embarrassing for me? I'm not the one who peaked in high school and never left this crappy town." Wrong crowd for that speech. The temperature dropped about 20 degrees. I stood up slowly, using my full height advantage. "Paige, I'm going to say this once, and I want you to listen carefully. You're not welcome here. You're not welcome at my job. And if you show up at either place again, I'll assume you're stalking me and handle it accordingly." She tried to maintain her composure, but I could see the fear creeping in. She'd finally realized she was dealing with someone who didn't need her approval anymore, and she was surrounded by people who actively disliked her. "Lucas, you're making a huge mistake. Leave. Now." She tried to make a dramatic exit, but knocked over the cooler on her way out, spilling ice and soda all over her dress. Nobody moved to help her. The message was clear. She was officially outnumbered and outclassed. After she left, the party actually got better. "You dodged a missile, not just a bullet," Vincent said as we cleaned up. "That girl would have made you miserable for the rest of your life." He wasn't wrong. And the best part was, I was just getting started. What happened next proved that I'd been right to prepare for escalation. Because what she did? I'd seen it coming, but I was prepared. She started driving by my house at weird hours. Mrs. Ortega, my neighbor who worked nights as a security guard, mentioned that some woman in a white BMW had been cruising the street at 2 a.m., asking questions about my schedule and whether I lived alone. I thanked Mrs. Ortega and asked her to call me if it happened again. Smart move, because it happened again. And again. Mrs. Ortega started taking photos of Paige's license plate and documenting the times. Turns out having a security guard for a neighbor is like having free surveillance. Then Paige began showing up at places where she knew I'd be. The grocery store, the gym, the bar where we hung out after work, always acting surprised, always wanting to talk things through like mature adults. But I'd anticipated this too. I started varying my routines randomly. Different stores, different times, different routes home. Made it impossible for her to predict where I'd be. Meanwhile, I documented every encounter with. The social media campaign intensified. Photos from our relationship with captions like "missing better times" and "some people don't know what they have until it's gone." Her friends were eating it up, but more importantly, she was creating a public record of her inability to move on. The real masterpiece was when she sent Talia a friend request on Facebook. When Talia ignored it, Paige created a fake profile using some Indian dude photo and sent her a message that was basically trashing me. Talia showed me the message while we were having coffee at the diner near the shop. She's completely lost her mind. Seriously, look at the profile picture, LMAO. Yeah, but she's lost it in a very organized, documented way. I screenshot the message and added it to my growing file. This is going to be useful later. You really think it'll get worse? I know it will. That's when I consulted with a lawyer. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to understand my options before I needed them. Ray knew a guy named Callahan who specialized in harassment cases, and he agreed to review my documentation for free. "This is solid work," he said, flipping through my evidence file. Most people wait until after something happens to start building a case. You're doing this right. So if she escalates, you'll have everything you need to shut it down permanently. Keep documenting everything, and don't engage with her directly. Let her hang herself with her own rope. Callahan also gave me some practical advice. Install a security camera at my house. Keep recording any interactions. Stay professional and calm if she confronted me in public. Meanwhile, Paige's life was starting to unravel in other ways. Her friend Lucy, who I'd met a few times, reached out through Talia to apologize for Paige's behavior. Apparently, Paige had been calling her friends at all hours, crying about how I'd ruined her life, and begging them to reach out to me on her behalf. None of us want any part of this, Lucy told Talia. Paige has lost her dang mind, and we're all getting tired of the drama. That's when I realized she was losing her support network. Her friends were backing away, her family was probably getting sick of her meltdowns, and she was increasingly isolated. I doubled down on the documentation. By this point, I had enough evidence to paper a small room. About 2 months later, Paige showed up at my house at 1 a.m., hammering on my door and screaming about how I'd destroyed her future. Mrs. Ortega called the police while I recorded everything through my security camera. When the cops arrived, Paige tried to claim I'd invited her over, but I had months of documentation proving otherwise. They arrested her for harassment and criminal trespass. The restraining order was approved the next day. I just had to be patient and let her do it to herself. 6 months after the arrest and restraining order, I was getting regular updates on Paige's spectacular meltdown through the grapevine. The details were absolutely beautiful. First, Daddy's investment firm quietly asked her to stop coming around the office because clients were getting uncomfortable with her emotional outbursts. Apparently, she'd had a crying fit in the lobby when someone mentioned seeing an engagement announcement in the paper, which triggered a rant about unfaithful men and gold-digging women. Then she flunked out of her MBA program. Hard to focus on case studies when you're spending 12 hours a day refreshing your ex's social media accounts and driving past his house. Her professors tried to work with her, offering extensions and makeup exams, but she kept submitting papers about workplace harassment and toxic masculinity that were obviously just thinly veiled rants about me. The best part was her job hunt. Turns out, having a restraining order on your record makes HR departments nervous. Who knew? She applied to dozens of firms, but background checks kept killing her applications. She ended up working at her mom's real estate office, which lasted exactly 3 weeks. She fired her for inappropriate behavior with clients. Her sorority sisters slowly started distancing themselves after the Facebook drama incident. Nothing kills your social standing in rich girl circles faster than publicly admitting you stalked a guy who dumped you for being a snob. Her Instagram went from constant group photos and hashtag best life posts to sad solo selfies with captions about fake friends and learning who really has your back. Meanwhile, my life was exactly where I'd planned it to be. Lucas's automotive was officially open for business, booked solid for 3 months in advance. I'd hired 2 full-time techs and was training a kid fresh out of technical school. Talia had quit her parts job to handle our books and customer service. Vincent had become like a father figure, stopping by regularly to check on our progress and steal our coffee. Ray was semi-retired but still came in 2 days a week to work on the classic car restorations that were becoming our specialty. Dean was handling our custom fabrication work while running his own welding business next door. We'd basically created a little automotive compound. But the real payoff came 18 months later at the annual car show downtown. That was the grand finale. And it was absolutely ridiculous. Wait till you hear this bomb. Talia and I were manning our booth, talking to potential customers about a '67 Mustang Resto mod we'd just finished. The car was perfect, numbers matching 289, but with modern fuel injection, upgraded suspension, and a custom interior that looked factory but had all the modern conveniences. Business was good, life was good, and I was exactly where I belonged. That's when I saw her. Your favorite telenovela star, Paige. She was walking through the show with some poor guy in a polo shirt and khakis who looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. She'd gained at least 40 pounds, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing a Live, Laugh, Love t-shirt that screamed, "I've given up on life." When she spotted me, her face lit up like Christmas morning. She started power walking toward our booth, dragging polo shirt behind. "Lucas! Oh my gosh, Lucas!" Talia tensed next to me, but I just smiled. "Oh, Paige. How are you doing?" She looked at our booth setup, professional banners, a portfolio of our work, business cards, the whole 9 yards. Then she looked at the Mustang we had on display, which had a sold sign and was attracting a crowd of admirers. This is your business?" "Yep, Lucas's Automotive. We specialize in high-end diagnostics and custom builds." I gestured to our display. Staying pretty busy. That's when she noticed Talia's ring. A simple but elegant band I'd designed myself and had custom made by a local jeweler. Nothing flashy, just solid and real, like everything else in our lives. You're... you're engaged? Her voice cracked like she was going through puberty again. 6 months now. I put my arm around Talia. Paige, meet my future wife, Talia. Talia stepped forward with a smile that could cut glass. Oh, you're the famous Paige. Lucas has told me so much about you. Paige's face went through about 6 different emotions in 2 seconds. I could see the exact moment when she realized that Talia knew everything. Seriously? Don't you think you're going too fast? How could you do this to me? I changed for you. I lowered my standards. I was willing to overlook your job. Talia laughed. Honey, looking at you now, I'm pretty sure Lucas raised his standards, not lowered them. That did it. Paige completely lost it right there in the middle of the car show. Started screaming about how I was supposed to come crawling back, how Talia was just some grease monkey witch who'd stolen her man. You were supposed to beg me to come back. You were supposed to realize you made a mistake. You were supposed to be miserable without me. Polo Shirt tried to calm her down, putting his hand on her arm, but she shoved him away and kept ranting. People were pulling out phones, recording this woman having a complete meltdown at a car show. I was helping you become better. I was going to make something of you. I let her finish her tantrum, then spoke in the same calm voice. Paige, I want you to look around. I gestured to our booth, to Talia, to the successful business we'd built, to the life we'd created. Does any of this look like misery to you? She followed my gaze. Finally, she looked at Polo Shirt, who was backing away like she might be contagious. You told me to know my place, remember? Well, this is it. Now you should know yours. Her face was red. Then she started tearing up when security showed up to escort her out, while she was still screaming how this wasn't fair. Polo Shirt just kept walking and never looked back. I honestly felt bad for the guy. He'd probably been getting the "my ex ruined my life" sob story for months, without knowing the real deal. Ray, who'd been watching the whole thing from the next booth over, walked up shaking his head and grinning. Son, that girl is nuttier than a fruitcake. Yeah, but she's somebody else's problem now. The best part? Someone had live-streamed her meltdown on Facebook. Within hours, it had been shared hundreds of times with captions like, "When keeping it real goes wrong," and "This is why you don't date crazy." Her final humiliation was going viral for all the wrong reasons. That was 2 years ago. Lucas's Automotive now has 8 employees, 5 service bays, and a waiting list that stretches into next year. We just bought the building next door to expand into custom fabrication and high-performance builds. Talia and I are happily married. She handles the business side and still gets her hands dirty when we need extra help. Paige? Last I heard, she was in another state and still single. But I wouldn't know for sure, because I stopped caring about her anyways. Know your place? Best advice I ever got. Mine just happened to be higher than she thought. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.